Hello everyone, I wish you peace and happiness. Are you all healthy? Today, I will continue to share with you the difficult, scarce and challenging days of Huyen and her mother trying to make a living. Early in the morning, the gentle rays of sunlight softly filter through the thatched roof, shining down on the porch of the small bamboo house of Huyen and her mother. The quiet space is only filled with the singing of birds and the cool breeze blowing through the green trees. Huyen just opened the door while holding an old cloth to dust off the bamboo railing, then carefully shook out her checkered shirt in preparation for a day of work. Next to her mother, little Micah, dressed in a cute pink dress, obediently stood in front of the porch, her clear eyes always watching her mother and Appo's every move. The girl occasionally asked a few innocent questions, making Huyen smile kindly. In the simple house with only a few rustic items, the warmth of maternal love still filled the space. After tidying up, Huyen patted Micah and Appo's head, then gently squatted down on the porch floor, smiling as she reached out to stroke the small dog with soft curly fur. The obedient dog lay quietly, wagging its tail slightly as if sensing her love. Next to her mother, little Micah also trotted over and sat down, carefully touching the soft fur of the dog with her tiny hands before giggling with delight. Huyen gently showed her how to pet softly so the dog wouldn't and Appo's be scared, and Micah obediently followed, petting the dog's head while chattering happily to her little friend. Inside the simple bamboo house, Micah's clear laughter blended with Huyen's gentle gaze, making the morning warm and peaceful. The dog lay obediently between mother and daughter, enjoying the loving strokes, as an irreplaceable little member of that humble home. Huyen took Micah and Appo's tiny hand and led her to the small ditch in front of the house. The clear water quietly flowed by, reflecting the morning sunlight and the green trees on both sides of the bank. Huyen bent down, scooped up handfuls of cool water to wash away the dirt from her hands, then gently held Micah and Appo's small hands, washing each finger. Micah giggled as the cool water touched her skin, occasionally splashing water and creating small ripples across the surface of the ditch. Huyen smiled and reminded her to wash her hands thoroughly before going home for breakfast. After washing her hands, she took a clean towel to dry Micah and Appo's hands, then mother and daughter held hands and slowly walked back to the small bamboo house, beginning a new day in the peaceful countryside. After washing her hands, Huyen led Micah back into the small house. She took a few toys and placed them in front of her child, then sat down gently, stroked Micah and Appo's soft hair and kindly said, "Stay inside and play nicely. Mom is going to the garden to pick some vegetables to sell at the market." Micah obediently nodded, hugged her toy and cheerfully replied, "Yes, Mom." Huyen carried the woven basket and stepped out into the small backyard. Under the gentle morning sunlight, the green water spinach bed stretched out after a dewy night, with each leaf fresh and tender. She bent down, using her rough hands to carefully pick each sprout to the right size, making sure the young tips below continued to grow. Each bunch of vegetables was neatly placed into the bamboo basket, keeping the leaves from being crushed. Occasionally, she wiped the beads of sweat from her forehead and then continued her work. Huyen suddenly startled when she heard Micah crying loudly from inside the small house. The innocent and frantic crying made her immediately let go of the bunch of vegetables in her hand and quickly stand up. Not having time to adjust her conical hat, Huyen hurriedly grabbed her bamboo basket and walked quickly towards the house, feeling worried. As she ran, she called out loudly, "Micah, Mom is here, Mom is coming right now, sweetie." In just a moment, Huyen reached the porch, pushed open the bamboo door and entered, her eyes anxiously scanning the room to find her daughter. Seeing Micah still inside the house, she hurriedly approached, embraced her into her arms, gently comforted her, and asked what had caused her to cry. Huyen hurriedly hugged Micah into her arms, gently stroked her back and asked softly, "What and Appo's wrong, Micah?" The girl pouted, tears streaming down her cheeks, hiccuping, "Mommy, I feel so itchy." Hearing this, Huyen became even more worried. She gently wiped Micah and Appo's tears, held her close to her chest, and tenderly comforted her. End quote. Be good, mommy is here. Don and Appo's cry anymore, let me see where you and Appo's itchy. End quote. Huyen and Appo's gentle voice and warm embrace gradually made Micah stop crying. The girl nestled her head into her mother and Appo's shoulder, still sniffling occasionally. Huyen carefully checked her arms, legs, and body, observing and gently massaging the areas Micah pointed to, hoping to find the cause soon to help her feel better. Huyen gently lifted Micah and placed her on the bamboo bed in the corner of the house. She adjusted the small pillow to make her comfortable, and then sat down beside her. One hand of Huyen held Micah, softly patting her small back to soothe her, while the other hand held a conical hat, slowly fanning gentle breezes. As she fanned, she tenderly stroked her child and Appo's hair and softly said, end quote, be good, mom is here. Just bear with it a little longer, end quote. Micah was still sniffling, but when she felt the warmth of her mother and Appo's embrace and the cool breeze from the conical hat, she gradually calmed down, her eyes half closed. Huyen patiently sat by the bed, continuously comforting and fanning her child, hoping Micah would feel less uncomfortable and soon be more at ease. After Huyen held and comforted Micah for a while, her itch gradually subsided. The girl reached out to rub her eyes, smiled softly, then hugged her mother's neck and whispered, end quote, my itch is gone, mom, end quote. Hearing this, Huyen let out a relieved sigh, gently kissed Micah on the forehead, and embraced her. The mother and daughter sat together on a bamboo bed, chatting and laughing happily. Huyen made funny faces that made Micah giggle uncontrollably. The clear laughter of the girl echoed throughout the small house, dispelling the earlier atmosphere of worry. The mother and daughter held hands, played simple games, and sang familiar nursery rhymes. In the humble house, the simple joy of the mother and daughter made the space warm and filled with happy laughter. Seeing Micah completely calm and happy again, Huyen gently stroked her head and softly said, end quote, stay inside and play for a little longer, okay? Mom will go to the garden to pick the remaining vegetables, then we and Appo's LL go to the market together. End quote. Micah obediently nodded, sitting beside the bamboo table with a few small toys, smiling and waving goodbye to her mother. Feeling more at ease, Huyen carried the bamboo basket and stepped out into the backyard garden. The lush water spinach beds still glistened with early morning dew under the morning sunlight. She bent down, her hands skillfully plucking each tender sprig of greens, carefully arranging them into the basket to prevent damage. Occasionally, Huyen looked up towards the small house, listening to see if Micah was calling her. Seeing that the house was still quiet, she smiled and continued harvesting the remaining greens. Before long, the bamboo basket was filled with fresh, green vegetables. After harvesting the last rows of vegetables, Huyen carried the bamboo basket back into the small house. She gently poured each handful of water spinach into a corner of the house that had been swept clean. The lush green stems, still glistening with dew, were straightened, wilted leaves discarded, and carefully divided into equal portions. Then, Huyen took a prepared roll of twine and skillfully tied each bunch of vegetables neatly. Each bunch was tied snugly enough to prevent it from falling apart but not so tight as to crush the stems. Thus her calloused hands moved swiftly, and before long, the corner of the house was neatly stacked with fresh green bunches of vegetables. Micah was sitting alone on a bamboo bed, holding a small doll and singing softly. Seeing her mother busy working, the girl put down her toy, quickly slid off the bed, and ran over to her mother. Micah looked up with clear eyes, smiled sweetly and said, end quote, Mommy, I and Appo's I'll help you. End quote. Huyen smiled kindly, gently patting her child and Appo's head. She handed Micah small bunches of vegetables and said, end quote, hold them gently, Don and Appo's crushed the vegetables, end quote. Micah obediently nodded, using her tiny hands to hold each bunch carefully and then placing them into the bamboo basket as her mother instructed. Every time she neatly placed a bunch, she would turn to look at her mother with an excited expression. Huyen, while arranging the larger bunches of vegetables, gently praised and quote, "Micah is so good, helping mommy already." End quote. Hearing her mother's praise, Micah smiled brightly, her eyes curling with happiness. Soon, the bamboo basket was filled with neatly arranged green vegetables. Seeing her little daughter diligently helping, Huyen felt her heart overflowing with happiness and motivation to keep trying. Huyen took the small hat and carefully placed it on Micah and Appo's head, then bent down to adjust the hat and Appo's strap so it wouldn't and Appo's fall off. She smiled gently and said, and quote, "Let and Appo's go to the market, dear." End quote. Micah happily nodded, hugging her mother and giggling. Huyen walked around to check that the fire was completely out, the window was closed properly. Then she closed the bamboo door and securely latched it. Afterwards, she bent down to carry the bamboo basket filled with bunches of green water spinach on her back. The basket was quite heavy, but Huyen still walked steadily. Micah hugged the basket to her chest with both hands, looking very happy to be helping her mother. Huyen smiled gently at her and said, and quote, "Hold it tightly, but if you and Appo's retired, tell me right away." End quote. Micah obediently replied, and quote, "Yes, I will help you, Mom." End quote. Seeing that the basket of vegetables Micah was holding seemed a bit too big for her small body, Huyen smiled and stepped closer. She gently took the basket from Micah and Appo's hands and said softly, and quote, "Let me carry it, you just need to walk beside me." End quote. Micah nodded obediently, smiling innocently. Huyen skillfully slung the woven basket full of green vegetables onto her back. The basket was heavy, but she maintained a steady walk. One hand held the basket of vegetables she just received from Micah, and the other gently grasped her tiny hand. Micah happily skipped beside her mother, looking up at Huyen with a joyful expression. Mother and daughter left the small bamboo house together. Huyen turned back to gently look at the roof once, and then continued walking along the dirt path leading to the market. The morning sunlight stretched across the walkway, and a gentle breeze blew through the rows of trees along the road. Although there were many hardships ahead, Huyen still felt warm inside as Micah and Appo's small hand always held hers tightly. The mother and daughter silently walked side by side, carrying freshly harvested bunches of greens and hoping for a successful market day. After traveling a certain distance, Huyen saw a small grocery store by the roadside. In front of the store, a few people were standing and shopping, so she took Micah and Appo's hand and approached. Huyen politely smiled and greeted the store owner, then gently said, and quote, "Hello, I just picked some water spinach from the garden and Appo's still very fresh. Would you like to buy some?" End quote. Then Huyen placed the basket down, opened the cloth cover to reveal neatly tied bunches of lush green water spinach. End quote. "Oh, the vegetables look so good. I and Appo's I'll take 2 bunches for you." End quote. While Huyen was politely chatting with the shop owner and introducing the bunches of fresh green vegetables just picked, Micah obediently stood beside her mother. Suddenly, her eyes were attracted to a colorful display of candies placed near the checkout counter. The candies wrapped in shiny paper and the neatly arranged small cakes piqued Micah and Appo's curiosity. She gently let go of her mother and Appo's hand and slowly approached the shelf. Micah just stood there admiring the colorful candy packages, her big eyes focused intently on each one, with a look of delight. Occasionally, she tilted her head, examining one package after another, then giggled softly. Although she loved the candies very much, Micah only watched without taking any of the items herself. Seeing Micah standing in front of the candy shelf with wide eyes attentively looking at the colorful candies, the shop owner smiled and approached her. She gently bent down and asked, and quote, "Do you like this candy?" End quote. Micah was a bit shy, nodded slightly and whispered, and quote, "Yes." End quote. Seeing the obedient and adorable girl, the shop owner took a candy from the glass jar, handed it to Micah and said, end quote, "Here you go." End quote. Micah looked at the candy and then turned to her mother as if asking for permission. Huyen smiled and nodded, while Micah politely received it with both hands and whispered, end quote, "Thank you, Ma and Appos. End quote. The shop owner kindly laughed, gently patted the girl's head, and Huyen, standing beside her, also felt her heart warm at such sincere kindness. Leaving the grocery store, Huyen gently took Micah and Appos' small hand and continued walking along the village road towards the market area. The bamboo basket full of fresh green water spinach was still securely on her back, while the basket of vegetables was held tightly in her arms. Micah happily looked at the candy given by the shop owner, her face bright with an innocent smile. Huyen looked at her daughter and softly reminded her, end quote, "Let and Appos' sell all the vegetables first, then you can eat the candy when we get back." End quote. Micah obediently nodded, put the candy into her small pocket, and held her mother and Appos' hand tightly. The mother and daughter slowly went from house to house, politely inviting everyone to buy the freshly picked water spinach. Huyen and her mother held hands and slowly walked along the village road, politely offering bunches of fresh water spinach for sale. Just then, a woman riding a motorbike passed by. Seeing the image of the thin mother carrying a woven basket full of vegetables on her back, with her obedient young daughter walking beside her, she slowed down and pulled over to the side of the road. The woman smiled and asked, end quote, "Did you just pick the water spinach?" End quote. Huyen politely replied, end quote, "Yes, I just picked it from the garden this morning. The vegetables are still very fresh, Ma and Appos. End quote. The woman bent down to look at the lush green bunches of vegetables. Seeing that they were neatly tied and still had dewdrops on them, she nodded in satisfaction. End quote. "Then take 5 bunches. End quote. Hearing that, Huyen happily took 5 bunches of vegetables and handed them to her. After receiving the vegetables and paying, the woman smiled and said, end quote, "The vegetables are very beautiful. Wishing you and your mother to sell out quickly." End quote. Huyen bowed her head to thank her. The woman smiled, waved goodbye, and continued on her way. Seeing the amount of vegetables in the basket had decreased, Huyen felt a wave of hope in her heart. She gently squeezed Micah and Appos' small hand, and mother and daughter continued walking, bringing the remaining bunches of vegetables to other houses, hoping to sell them all during that morning and Appos' market. Huyen and her mother continued along the quiet village road. After walking for a while, Huyen saw a house with an open gate. She gently led Micah into the yard, politely stood in front of the porch and called out, end quote, "Sister, do you have any water spinach for sale? I just picked it from the garden this morning, it and Appos' still very fresh." End quote. After speaking, Huyen smiled and waited, gently opening the cloth covering the basket to reveal bunches of lush green vegetables. Next to her mother, Micah obediently stood still, holding on to Huyen and Appos' shirt, her clear eyes looking towards the house door. The woman looked at the bunches of fresh green vegetables and smiled kindly, saying to Huyen, end quote, "Pick a few bunches for me." End quote. Huyen happily selected the prettiest bunches and handed them to her. While receiving the vegetables, the woman suddenly looked at Micah, who was obediently standing beside her mother, her small hands clutching Huyen and Appos' shirt. She smiled affectionately and asked, end quote, "Oh, your little one is so adorable. Is she helping her mom sell vegetables?" End quote. Micah nodded softly and politely replied, end quote, "Yes, I am helping my mom." End quote. Seeing the girl's obedient and polite behavior, the woman couldn't help but smile with delight. Huyen also smiled kindly, gently patting the child and Appos' head and replying, end quote, "Yes, she's still young, so I brought her along to take care of her." End quote. Understanding the difficult circumstances of the mother and child, the woman gently paid for the vegetables for Huyen. Then she smiled, took some more money, and handed it to Micah, softly saying, end quote, "This is for your milk." End quote. Micah looked at the money in confusion and then turned to her mother as if asking for permission. Huyen quickly waved her hand shyly, saying, end quote, "No, I and Appos' Am very happy just paying for the vegetables, please Don and Appos. T give her more. End quote. The woman still kindly smiled, end quote, just accept it. This is a small gift from me for the little one. I hope she can have a good bottle of milk, end quote. Seeing her sincere kindness, Huyen was touched and bowed her head to thank her, end quote. Thank you so much Ma and Appos, end quote. Following her mother and Appos' words, Micah politely took the money with both hands and whispered, end quote. Thank you Ma and Appos, end quote. The woman smiled kindly, gently stroked Micah and Appos' head before saying goodbye. Seeing the good heart of the stranger, Huyen felt her heart warm and gained more faith that even amid many difficulties, there are always people willing to share and help. Leaving the house, Huyen held Micah and Appos' small hand tightly. The mother and daughter followed the country road shaded by trees and stopped in front of a small eatery that was starting to get busy. As soon as she saw the shop owner, Huyen smiled kindly and politely greeted her. End quote. Hello, I still have a few bunches of fresh water spinach. Please keep some for yourself. End quote. She placed the basket down and gently lifted the cloth cover to reveal the lush green bunches freshly picked in the morning. Then, recalling the help she received before, Huyen sincerely continued. End quote. Thank you, Ms. Nai. In the past you gave Micah some clothes and we have always been grateful to you. After chatting for a while, Huyen smiled and thanked the shop owner for always caring for and supporting mother and daughter. The shop owner happily wished them good health and waved goodbye. Huyen gently held Micah and Appos' small hand and the girl politely bowed and greeted. End quote. Hello Ma and Appos end quote. The shop owner smiled back. End quote. Take care on your way home, mother and daughter. End quote. Huyen nodded softly. End quote. Yes, thank you. Wishing you good luck in your business. End quote. As I said, mother and daughter held hands and left the restaurant, slowly walking along the familiar countryside road to return to the small house. The gentle midday sunlight cast down the path, and cool breezes softly blew across the green fields. Micah happily skipped beside her mother, while Huyen smiled lovingly at her child. Although selling vegetables in the morning was quite tiring, the help and encouragement from kind-hearted people made her feel warmer inside. The mother and daughter tightly held each other and Appos' hands, quietly returning home in the peaceful scenery of the countryside. As soon as she got home, Huyen gently placed the heavy bamboo basket on her back on the floor, and let out a soft sigh after a morning of selling vegetables. She opened the basket, carefully took out the items she brought back, and arranged them in a bamboo basket placed in the corner of the house. The sweet potatoes she just bought were cleaned of the dirt on the outside and neatly set aside. Next, Huyen gently placed the ripe yellow papaya given to her and her mother by a kind person while they were selling vegetables on top of the basket. Looking at the simple foods in front of her, Huyen smiled contentedly. Although life was still full of hardships, thanks to her hard work and the sharing of those around her, today's meal for mother and daughter was a little more complete and warm. Next to her mother, Micah also scurried to sit down, curiously looking at the sweet potatoes and papaya, then smiling innocently. Huyen took the small knife and sat down beside the water basin in front of the house porch. She carefully peeled the outer skin of the sweet potatoes she just bought, each cut made with steady and skillful strokes. After peeling, she placed the sweet potatoes into the basin of water, rinsed them multiple times to clean thoroughly, then took them out to drain. Then, Huyen placed the sweet potatoes on a wooden cutting board and cut them into small bite-sized pieces, preparing for the cooking process. Looking at the neatly prepared basket of sweet potatoes, she gently smiled. Tonight, Huyen plans to make sweet potato cakes to change the flavor of their dinner. Even with simple ingredients, she still wanted to make a delicious hot dish herself so that Micah would have a warm and cozy dinner after a day of selling vegetables with her mother. Micah also wants to help her mother prepare dinner. The girl carefully takes a clean bowl, opens the packet of flour, and slowly pours it into the bowl. Then Micah adds a little water as her mother instructed. She holds a small pair of chopsticks with both hands and slowly stirs. At first, the batter clumps, but Micah patiently stirs in circles, her small tongue sticking out in concentration. Seeing her child focused on helping, Huyen smiles gently, softly reminding her and quote, "Stir slowly so the flour dissolves evenly," end quote. Micah obediently nods and continues stirring until the batter becomes smooth. The small house is filled with a warm atmosphere as mother and daughter prepare dinner together, each contributing a tiny but loving hand. Huyen gently adds the sliced sweet potatoes into the bowl, then uses a pair of chopsticks to stir in circles so that the flour coating evenly covers each piece. She works very carefully, turning each slice gently to ensure the batter coats thoroughly without breaking the potatoes. Micah stands beside her, attentively watching her mother, occasionally leaning close to the bowl and delighting in seeing the slices gradually coated with a fine white flour. Huyen smiles at her daughter and says, and quote, "Later when I fry them they and oppose, it'll smell so good. The two of us will enjoy them together," end quote. Hearing this, Micah happily nods, her eyes shining with excitement, eagerly awaiting the hot sweet potato cakes for dinner. Huyen turned on the stove, placed the pan on top, and poured in a sufficient amount of oil. She patiently waited until the oil was hot, with small ripples forming on the surface of the pan before starting to cook. Holding a small spoon, Huyen gently scooped the batter and sweet potato mixture, and slowly poured it into the pan. As it touched the hot oil, each cake sizzled happily, and the aroma of the batter and sweet potato quickly filled the small house. Huyen skillfully kept a distance between the cakes so they wouldn't and oppose stick together, then patiently waited for the bottom to turn golden before gently flipping them to cook the other side. Standing beside her, Micah watched intently as the cakes gradually turned a golden hue, her eyes shining with delight. The girl sniffed the fragrant smell and smiled brightly, end quote. "Mom, the cakes smell so good," end quote. Huyen smiled as she looked at her daughter, continuing to fry each batch of cakes with the hope of giving Micah a simple yet delicious and warm dinner. While waiting for the evenly golden sweet potato pancakes on the pan, Huyen took the opportunity to prepare a dessert for her mother and herself. She took a ripe yellow papaya that a kind person had gifted in the afternoon, placed it on a wooden cutting board, and gently peeled off the skin with a knife. Then, Huyen cut the papaya in half, skillfully scooped out all the black seeds in the middle with a spoon, and rinsed it thoroughly. She cut the papaya into small bite-sized pieces and carefully arranged them neatly on a porcelain plate. The ripe papaya pieces, with their shiny orange-yellow color, looked very appealing. Huyen placed the plate of papaya on the table, smiling to herself, thinking that after dinner, she and her mother would enjoy this sweet, refreshing fruit together. Just then, the aroma of the sweet potato pancakes spreading from the pan filled the house, and Huyen quickly returned to the kitchen, gently flipping each pancake to ensure they turned golden brown on both sides. The sweet potato cakes were evenly golden and emitted a fragrant aroma. Huyen gently picked up each cake onto a plate, drained the oil and arranged them alongside the prepared papaya. Seeing the cool afternoon, she decided to bring out a small bamboo table to the front yard, so that mother and daughter could enjoy dinner, while feeling the gentle countryside breeze. Huyen carefully carried the table and placed it under the shade of a tree in front of the porch. Seeing her mother busy, Micah quickly ran into the house, trying to carry a chair out to the yard with both hands. Although her steps were still slow because the chair was almost as tall as she was, the girl smiled brightly because she was helping her mother. Huyen looked at her daughter affectionately and gently said, end quote, "Micah is so good, already helping Mom," end quote. Hearing her mother praise her, the girl giggled and neatly placed the chair next to the table. Soon, the small yard was tidily arranged, ready for a cozy dinner for mother and daughter under the clear countryside sky. Huyen sat down on the small chair in front of the yard, placing a hot sweet potato cake on the bamboo table. She gently broke the cake in half, a thin wisp of steam and the aroma of sweet potatoes and flour wafting out. Fearing that the child might burn herself, Huyen held the piece of cake while softly blowing on it to cool it down before giving it to Micah. The girl also imitated her mother, holding the small piece of cake with both hands, pouting her lips to blow on it, then taking a small bite. The sweet and nutty flavor of the sweet potato combined with the crispy golden crust made Micah smile happily. Huyen also leisurely enjoyed her own piece of cake, occasionally looking at her child with a loving gaze. In the breezy afternoon, mother and daughter were blowing the cakes to cool, eating and chatting cheerfully. Micah and Appo's clear laughter blended with the chirping of birds in the trees, creating a simple, warm and joyful scene in the small countryside house. Huyen looked across the yard, where Pippi the dog was obediently lying on a small cushion, attentively watching the mother and daughter. She smiled, broke a small piece of sweet potato cake and said to Micah and quote, "Let an Appo's give Pippi some to eat." End quote. Micah happily nodded, carefully holding a small piece of cake in her palm, then walked over with her mother. Huyen sat down beside Pippi, gently stroked the dog and Appo's head and placed the cake on a small bowl in front of her. Micah also gently placed her piece of cake into the bowl and softly called, end quote, "Pippi, eat." End quote. Understanding the affection between the mother and daughter, Pippi wagged his tail slightly, bowed his head, and ate each piece of cake happily. Seeing that, Micah clapped her hands joyfully, giggling while Huyen smiled, patting both Micah and Pippi on the head. In the small yard bathed in the evening light, the scene of the mother and daughter caring for the little dog created a peaceful, warm, and loving atmosphere. As night gradually falls, the small house becomes quiet after a long day filled with hardships but also overflowing with love. Huyen tidies up the dishes, closes the bamboo door, and lights a small oil lamp, its gentle yellow glow spreading throughout the room. She gently lifts Micah onto the bamboo bed, neatly covers her with a thin blanket, then sits beside her, softly stroking her soft hair and soothing her until she falls asleep. Micah hugs her small doll, her face peaceful with a faint smile on her lips as if dreaming a beautiful dream. Huyen quietly watches her daughter, her heart filled with simple happiness. Although life is still full of shortages, just being with Micah every day, sharing every hardship with her, is the most precious thing to her. Outside, the sound of insects chirping blends with the cool night breeze, closing a peaceful day in the small house of mother and daughter. If everyone loves Mother Huyen and Micah, please subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and leave a supportive message for the two mothers to follow the next developments. Every follow and every loving comment from everyone will be a source of comfort and encouragement for Huyen to try to get through difficult times. Thank you all very much.